You might wonder where I am right now. Well, I said before that I have some of my collection down in the cellar, and I thought it was a good idea to show some of the stuff that I have in the cellar. There are some genres that I had to move down due to space in my apartment. So I made a little room here down here for some of the genres that I necessarily don't listen the much to, but records that I still want to have in my collection. So I thought we could go through some of these in this collection. So hold on tight. I realized that if I'm going to show each and every one of these, this video will take forever and might also get a little bit boring because there's a whole lot of Swedish here and stuff that many of you have no idea what it is. So I'm going to take the goodies. First, my little collection of stuff that are hilariously bad, so stupid that it actually is great humor. And it's both the albums themselves and the covers in some points. So this is 12 Immortal Fables. This is Swedish athletes from the 70s reading Aesop's fables in a not that good way. It's pretty stupid, hilariously bad reading. Here we have an album cover by Swedish dancing orchestra Karlstad Örjans. What do you say about this cover? I wouldn't say that actually is that good cover. Or how you like a Viking party with Swedish dancing orchestra Vikingarna having a party drinking beer, or should I say a stout with whipped cream on. We have a Halloween party, costume party with Sten Karlsson and Salta Mandlar. And these costume characters have nothing to do with each other. You have a Scot, you have a clown guy, you have a cowboy, you have a nice suit, you have a 17th century guy. Or how would you like to wear one of these? These are a really nice costume, isn't it? By the band called Svenssons. How about taking a tour on a golden record with Flamingo Quintetten? Not such a bad cover, isn't it? I realize that this may not be a really bad cover, but it is an hilariously cover, because if you know the background, that this guy, this is a record with old Swedish folk music, a genre which very often uses accordion, which this guy, Swedish television host Sten Broman, hated. He hated accordion, according to what has been said. And of course they're making a spoof of him on the cover of this old folk music album cover, where he plays an accordion. Sato, Francesco Salvi, a 12-inch, hilariously stupid, both music-wise and cover-wise. And of course this you have seen a couple of times, the Nothing record album. It is funny because it is nothing on it. It is an album that is been they have been marketing as a normal album, and if you put it on a turntable, nothing will happen. It's nothing on it. Swedish religious singer Jan Sparring, and an album cover where was the photographer drunk or high on something? Was this the best picture they could get? And how about this interesting formula? You're putting the title of the album in the back, not anywhere else. And then, of course, the classic Herb Alpert and Tiana Brass with Cream. Now we're going to more serious stuff. Here we have Age of Television, a chronicle of the first 25 years. And for you Americans, I assume this is some nostalgia. I don't even know half of these, 80% of these, but it was a fun thing to have still. Coming to Christmas albums, this is a Christmas album I put on every Christmas, not because I like dancing music, but because I think this has a really genuine Christmas mood. So a couple of Christmas albums now, when we're going into July soon. Erasure's Crackers International EP, Elvis. This is a Swedish Christmas compilation with different Swedish artists singing newly in 1988 composed Christmas songs. A Swedish Christmas choir with opera singer Håkan Hagegård. Now coming into a couple of Edmundo Ross albums. Some easy listening. I have more Edmundo Ross, of course, upstairs. I haven't been listening to yet. Now we're coming to a category of Brazilian music called MPB. This is Elis Regina, a very popular Brazilian singer and a great one. Here together with Belgian whistler, harmonica player, guitar player Toots Thielemans. Sergio Mendes trio. This is actually a really great one because it's not that often you see a Sergio Mendes album with a trio. But it's a really great one actually. You normally see him like this with the Brazil 66. Ulf Wakenius is a Swedish guitar player. Here he plays Aquarela do Brasil. It is recorded both in Rio de Janeiro and in Stockholm, and it also contains some Brazilian musicians. They play Brazilian music. This is Gary McFarland, soft samba strings, verb. Gary McFarland has also made a record with Stan Getz. Antonio Carlos Jobim, Wave. And here you have the man, Stan Getz. Best of Two Worlds, featuring João Gilberto. I will assume that this is Astor Gilberto. This is an autograph signed by Stan Getz himself. Not to me though, but still an autograph. Toots Thielemans, again, here together with Brazilian accordion player Sivuca. Bossa Nova. This is an easy listening album that isn't that special, but for some reason I've saved it. And João Gilberto, Bossa Nova Jubilee. Then we come to a couple of Swedish poetry albums, poetry singing albums, like Evert Taube, Sam-Bertil Taube and so on. So this is nice relaxing summer music. Balladeers, troubadours, all Swedish though, with one exception. And I really like this box set by Swedish balladeer Cornelis Vreeswijk. You don't know even half of these. Maybe this one, because he's British, that played and lived a lot in Sweden. Michael Best concert. This is an album that you see in dollar bins everywhere, in every flea market, thrift store. But a proof that you shouldn't fear all of the records that are in those bins, because this is actually a really great one, where he make British translations of Swedish composer and poet Carl Michael Bellman, and have made his song with authentic instrument from that era, but in English. Here is more Michael Best, and I think we're moving on to musicals and some classics. My Fair Lady. This is an album by Ellen Page, famous musical singer. Phantom of the Opera. Original with Michael Crawford and Sarah Brightman. We're having Evita. Aspects of Love, another Andrew Lloyd Webber. South Pacific, Rogers Hammerstein. Kiro Te Kanava and Jose Carreras. And Sarah Vaughan. Cats. More Andrew Lloyd Webber. Barbra Streisand, the Broadway album. And we have Jesus Christ Superstar. This is my albums from the 60s. And it's a genre that I had up in my apartment up until recently. But it shared space with my 70s record that needed more place, because I buy, after all, more 70s than I do 60s. So I had no choice than to move the 60s down here. But it's a great one. Aretha Franklin live, playing jazz in person and with a quartet. We have a really great one, highly recommended. Aretha Franklin live in Paris, 68. Impressions with Curtis Mayfield. This is My Country. From Elvis in Memphis. This is might be the best album Elvis ever made. And we have this album's Elvis 1969 comeback, and I feel like these two, plus maybe the Christmas album that I showed previously, are the Elvis I need, actually. This is Elvis at the best, in my opinion. This is Supremes and the Temptations, and from the Motown created TV series TCB. And more with Diana Ross and the Temptations. Diana Ross and the Supremes, sorry, and the Temptations. This is a really great album. I'm no huge fan of 60s soul, but this might be one of the best 60s soul albums I ever heard. Greatest Hits by Roy Orbison. Engelbert Humperdinck. Jack Jones' Greatest Hits. My Pledge of Love, Joe Jeffrey. Norman Greenbaum, Spirit in the Sky album. Spencer Davis Group, the second album, also a really great one. More Spencer Davis, the best of Spencer Davis Group. And a Ray Charles. Then we come to another huge genre, my albums of Swedish 60s schlager. Or should I say 60s and 70s schlagers. So here's a lot of names that you don't know. Ann-Louise Hansson. We have more Ann-Louise Hansson. This you might know. This is Agneta Fältskog from ABBA. And a very late album. And it contains also her Swedish solo version of ABBA's SOS. Compilations. You have Tova Karlsson. Lars Berghagen, Family 4. This is one of my favorites, Kjell Hansson, 70s Schlager, pop Schlager singer that I think is really great. I think I have almost complete by him. Lilin Fors, Landslaget, more of rock and roll than Schlager, but I put it down here still. We have Jan Høyland, Norway. Hootenanny Singers, another one group of my favorites. Hootenanny Singers, of course, were the band where this guy started his career. Björn Ulvaeus from ABBA. Only I think Hootenanny Singers are even better, in my opinion. And another one of my absolute favorites, Swedish country Schlager singer Alf Robertson. An artist that my father and I share the fascination for. Stefan Rydén, a great singer, though with also a little strange taste of album covers. This one isn't that horrible, but how about this one? This one was pretty normal, but how about this cover? Is also signed. Anita Lindblom. Another one of my favorites, Gunnar Wiklund. You might call him Sweden's Jim Reeves. Small Town Singers, a band I have discovered pretty recently. And so on and so on. This is Sylvia Vrethammar, who had a pretty good international career. And we have some also accordion jazz I have put down here also. Art van Dam Quintet, Sören Rydgren, and Sören Rydgren, Swedish accordion jazz player. There are a few things that brings out as much nostalgia as old children cartoons and old children records, and of course I'm no exception. So I have some children records that are nostalgia or stuff that I do like. This is Tintin records. I have these are the classic recordings from the 70s and 80s that many of the Swedish children who were grown up at the time remembers. I have complete, but they are in different kind of formats. I have on records, on vinyl, I have on cassette, so they are in all kind of formats. So this is, now I have no clue at the moment what the albums are called in English, but this is The Moon. So a whole lot of Tintin. Walt Disney, this is a pretty new started collection where I try to find the soundtracks or the stories of the Disney movies. It would be fun to find one in English, but all of these are Swedish voiceovers, of course, the Swedish versions. Pongo, and this is I think it's a follow-up. This is a part 2, if I'm not wrong. Bernard and Bianca. Aristocats. This might be one of my absolute favorite Disney movies. Robin Hood. Jungle Book Part 2. Not as good as Part 1, but still fun to have. The Little Mermaid. Sword in the Stone. Then we have a couple of these early 70s, not that good albums where they have been putting together some stories and had horrible acting along with it. This is Goofy, who in Sweden for some reason is called Jan Långben. Olympic Games. I guess this is more sport Goofy. Donald Duck, The Road to Fame and Glory. This is really horrible. Really horrible. Mickey Mouse, Farlig resa, Dangerous Trip. Sesame Street, this is the Swedish version of Sesame Street with Swedish voiceovers and Swedish songs also, and it contains only puppets. In Sweden we had then called Swedish Sesam, Svenska Sesam, which contains only mostly the puppets, and then Swedish comedy stuff for kids. Scooby-Doo. More Tintin. This one should be here. Scooby-Doo. This one I remember when I was a child, and I was at the daycare center, and I recorded this on cassette back then, and was sitting in the playroom listening to it with a friend of mine. This also. More Tintin. This is the movie that wasn't made by Hergé. This is also movie Temple of the Sun. Moving this so. A little I'm sorting stuff up at the same time. More Scooby-Doo. This is Swedish comedians Klasse Möllberg and Lasse Åberg, who made a series with Trasan and Banane. And Trasan was of course a kind of a spoof of Tarzan, and Banane was supposed to be some kind of a monkey, and they have some kind of comedy stuff. This is pure nostalgia for me. I just love these guys as an adult also. Putting this there. Also nostalgia. 5 myror är fler än 4 elefanter. 5 ants is more than 4 elephants, it was called. It was an educational children program with Magnus Härenstam, Eva Remeus and Brasse Brännström. And it was one program that taught me to read in a very early age. So it was a program that mixed comedy for kids along with education in how to read and count. And they made television shows, they made records, as I have 2 of them. More Scooby-Doo. More Sesame Street. This is another one that mixed comedy with education for kids. Sant och sång, but it was from a television series called Sant och sånt with Staffan Ling and Bengt Andersson. Bamse, Swedish cartoon character that also made a whole lot of movies, short movies that today are classics. Trolltider, that was how should I explain it? Swedish television series that was broadcasted during Christmas time. Twice. Ville Valle Victor. Call it left-sided comedy series from the late 60s, early 70s. And then we have seen and more of Trasan and Banane. Look, I found a duplicate. This is very interesting. This is an album where a Swedish actor reading Fables, Aesop's Fables, better than the athletes. But I remember this was the first vinyl I owned, not the first I bought, because that was Paul Hardcastle, but the first album I owned that my family bought to me. I remember it still, so I have kept it through all these years. And it isn't also in such a bad shape still. And finally, this is Fablernas Värld, the World of the Fables. That was a television series in the late 60s. This is my classical albums. I don't buy those that much these days. Not that I don't like it. I like classical music, especially Baroque, but I don't have the money or energy to focus on it. I focus more on the other stuff. This is Rhapsody in Blue with piano rolls from Gershwin himself playing it. And I'm not going to pull all of them out, but you have some Haydn here. You have 4 trumpet concerts. Åke Hjelvings Orchester, Mendelssohn. This is, I especially like older recordings. So this is Arthur Schnabel spielt Franz Schubert with recordings from the, I think, 30s and 40s. So, soundtrack of Amadeus. These are little special because these records I got from my grandmother when she died. And this one is with Baroque music, a compilation I also remember a lot listening to once when I was at my grandmother's home, my grandmother and grandfather. So I'm very happy that I finally got to own this record myself, and specifically that record also. So some Baroque here. Stravinsky, Bartók, Monteverdi, Haydn, Debussy, Purcell, another one that I got from my grandmother. And I have some Handel, Mozart, more Handel, more Mozart. Vivaldi, and so on and so on and so on. It's a little hard to dig through. I'm only going to show one that looks very worn out, but it's still special to me. And this is this of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony in C minor, and this is the first classical album I got many years ago. So that was it. You saw some 7-inch singles without a sleeve also in the back, but those I have shown in a previous video. I'll leave a link to that in the description area. So who knows if more genres will be moved down here, and the downside of having them here is that I can't take care of them and listen to them as much as I want to, but still I have them in my possession, and it's the best thing I can do at the moment, and it's working very good. So with that, let's go upstairs again. So take care everybody, until next time, see ya.